Hey, it's Brunch with Brian, your home investing live stream. And here we are over by the front of our community in Los Angeles here where we have the beautiful flags. This is just a regular desert they left here. Nice desert landscaping. And so today I was going to talk about buying out a tenant. Now, normally what we're dealing with, guys, is lease purchase tenant buyers. So these aren't like a regular tenant that you're just paying a rent for. Some of these people you're getting rent, and you may not be getting enough rent. You may have some deal where you don't like the deal, or you don't like the tenant, or you don't like the tenant buyer that you have in there. Sometimes, now that's why the best fail safe against this is doing what? Is never give anybody more than 12 months. Okay, now sometimes even after you give somebody 12 months, they turn into this trouble tenant. Now, what the great thing about the way we set it up, our business, is that we get a big non-refundable option deposit. We only give them 12 months to buy, and so generally you're through any problems fairly quickly. If they're a troubled person, you just don't extend their lease after the 12 months and you ask them to vacate. Now, remember, if they gave you a big non refundable option deposit, it changes the whole complexion of everything. We did plenty of deals where we just had normal renters in there, and we would often do a thing called buying out a tenant. Buying out a tenant works even if you're buying another house. This is actually probably where you'll use it more. You may use it on a property that you've had for a while, and the person is giving you trouble and they still have a lease. Remember, if they don't have a lease, you don't have to buy them out. You just have to give them 30 days notice. And depending on, there is some state statutory regulations that you should check with on that. But definitely, you should be aware of being able to buy somebody out. In fact, one of our students wasn't going to do a deal. This deal wasn't going to work because there was a tenant in there that was kind of a problem tenant, and so it was creating issues. So guess what? What does Lynette say? Buy them out. It's a three-word phrase. Buy them out, and it's a whole strategy, guys. Sometimes you learn a strategy. You don't need a book. You don't need a whole chapter in a book to figure out that strategy. Sometimes you just need three words. Buy them out. Okay, so and that's all we said, and they said, "Oh, that makes perfect sense. Now the deal works." Okay, and normally these tenants can be bought out pretty cheap. Let's say it's someone paying $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month. What would you offer them? Well, it depends on how long their lease is for. Do they have another? Because you're never going to sign anything longer than 12 months, they shouldn't even have anything longer than about 10 months or less. So you really shouldn't have to be buying them out from some really long lease because you should never sign that. Now, sometimes it will be signed before you got there. So sometimes some landlord might have been kind of not, kind of ignorant on this and signed some 5-year lease or something, or a 3-year lease. So you're coming into it and the person's still got 2 years left or something. All right, well then that might be a bigger buyout. We just offered a buyout to a person who has one of our houses, and part of it was when we had this house, it was a work for equity when we were selling it, and so he was a really good guy for doing all the work. And this had a lot of work on this house, and I just didn't want to deal with it at the time. We had a lot of other deals going, so I just put this guy in there, thinking he was maybe the right person. But this house is over his head. He can't really afford the payment very well, and Lynette is working the camera, and she keeps going up and down. So if you're getting dizzy, she's trying to get the best shot, I guess. So again, if this guy, I thought he would be able to take care of the property, and he did a great job. He painted the whole exterior, and this is a big house with a big exterior. So that was kind of the reason, and that we did it. He painted the whole house. He did a lot of the work, but then I realized now that he's kind of over his head in this neighborhood. He's also not so classy like the rest of the neighborhood, and so there's different areas that you have challenges. So you can offer to buy people out, and this is a strategy we're using right here, and you figure out what is worth it for you to get out of the deal. And it could be 5,000. I don't want you probably offering anything more than 5,000 in most cases. Maybe you can do it for a couple thousand. Sometimes you think you have a terrible problem and you say, hey, I'll give you $1,000 to move out within 30 days. And they say, okay, yeah, we'll do it. Because the thousand gives them moving money and they were ready to move anyway or whatever. So buying out a tenant, don't forget this incredible strategy. It will get you when you're buying a house and you don't want that tenant by. Now, why don't you want a tenant in there? Remember, if there's some tenant in there paying a low rental, you want to turn around and lease purchase that house. So you don't want to keep it as a rental. You want to get somebody in there with skin in the game. You want to get a big non-refundable option deposit. If you're stuck with a tenant, sometimes it's important for the person you're buying the house that they want the tenant to stay in there, and you can say that's okay. Okay, but sometimes you want to, and sometimes you just want to get them out. And so buying people out when you buy a house is a great strategy, and sometimes even with houses that you've had. Okay, so guys, that's Brunch with Brian. Thanks for joining us today. That's a really important strategy for you guys to understand and use as you progress forward in your career. Till we see you next time, keep expecting success and taking action.